Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 111 today for the Austrian Grand Prix in Season 7. If you guys did miss the previous one at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, because it was very much well done, Baku, as we had 5 disqualifications and 5 DNFs. It was the usual carnage around the street of Azerbaijan, and we had a titanic ending to that episode, as it was a photo finish decider for the race win between Yuki Tsunoda chasing in the Andretti Honda and Kevin Magnussen in the Gulf Porsche Williams, and across the line Tsunoda bagged Andretti's first ever win in Formula 1. So that was certainly one way to round off the first half of the season, and that means we've got the contract period for the mid-season, and of course we're going to be re-signing Lewis Hamilton as our teammate, of course, now with that win under his belt at the British Grand Prix, hoping he's built some confidence from that, although his focus is low at 62, so might explain maybe the kind of, slow and rough start to the season he has had. But following that British Grand Prix, before the strategy blunder, he was leading the way at Baku, so I think we're going to see some more good performances from Lewis. But the re-signing of our teammate is not the only bit of contract action we have seen mid-season. Yeah, we've got a couple of mid-season transfers, and let me tell you, some of them are pretty darn juicy. And we kick things off with Audi Sport. They have the championship leader Lando Norris driving for them, but they have dropped his teammate after a really difficult first part of this season, not matching Lando. Sainz has been dropped, and Audi have signed Yuki Tsunoda, the latest race winner this season. Following that victory at Baku, Audi reckons Tsunoda could be a good fit for them to score more crucial points in the Constructors' Championship, because of course it makes a bit of sense. Lando's been single-handedly carrying Audi in the Constructors, really, and if they're ready to fight against some consistent drivers of Schumacher, Drugovich as a pairing, myself and Hamilton, Piastri and Hulkenberg for Haas recently have been really great, especially Nico Hulkenberg, and Leclerc and Magnussen arguably as well. They've had their share of bad luck recently, but they've also been very strong. Just remember the double podium at Monaco that took them to the top of the Constructors. Audi needed a second driver to score more points than Sainz was every race, so they've bet on Tsunoda, and that has freed up the Spaniard then, Carlos Sainz. And Mercedes, well, George Russell stays put, but they looked at the outbound Carlos Sainz without a seat and decided, you know what, we want to upgrade this pairing, and they have swooped in to sign Carlos Sainz and save him from being seatless for the rest of the season. And they have dumped, quite ruthlessly, Alexander Albon from their team, only having signed him this season, of course, along Russell. So Mercedes becoming as ruthless as Red Bull were to Albono, and he is out at Mercedes, and it's now Russell and Sainz. It's a pretty darn tasty pairing to maybe try and climb the Silver Arrows up the order. We then move to Andretti. Of course, Tsunoda going out has left a seat vacant there. They weren't ever going to drop their American rookie, Logan Sargent. Big American pull for an American team, but they're left without a star. And surprise, surprise, Fernando Alonso has weaseled his way to that seat. It's no shock, to be fair, because Alonso in this series has driven for Andretti before. He was one of their first drivers when they entered this series, of course, so they're familiar with Alonso, so they know they can work well together. And of course, Alonso has been relegated to a backmarker Aston Martin for most of this season, so no surprise maybe why he would want to climb up to a team that had just won a Grand Prix. And that has left Albon then to take his vacant seat at Aston Martin. So Albon now all of a sudden finds himself at a backmarker team of Aston Martin alongside Sergio Perez, and Fernando Alonso's done what Fernando Alonso always does and tries to be a wheeler dealer in the market and get himself up the order. And having won a race, maybe Andretti, going back to Andretti might be the good feel vibe. Fernando Alonso is looking for. All the same for the rest of the teams, Repsol Haas keep their faith in Oscar Piastri despite a few difficult races where Nico Hülkenberg has been the team leader, starring with consistent podiums. And of course, Vettel Rennsport was never going to shift from Schumacher and Drugovich with Sebastian Vettel as their team principal. You know, I'm sure Vettel is all about loyalty and building a good, harmonious team. So for the first time, really, in this series on the F1 22 game, we've actually had a major shake-up then mid-season with some of these transfers. We had so many on F1 2021. You know, some of those mid-season contract periods were bonkers on the previous F1 game, but F1 22 has been a bit more subdued. But finally, 7 seasons in, we've had a bit of a shake-up. So here are the drivers in their new digs, their new surroundings. Tsunoda in the Audi looks quite peculiar. Alonso and Andretti, familiar, of course, because, of course, you know, Alonso was in the Andretti before in previous seasons, so he kind of looks at home. Albon in the Aston Martin is a bit of an odd one to look at, and a bit of a shame for him. Really was, you know, a victim of the ruthlessness of Mercedes wanting to get back to former glories as they dropped him for Carlos Sainz, and Carlos Sainz was hoping for a new lease of life alongside George Russell, not in the shadow of Lando Norris in that Audi that very much seems to suit the Brit, very much so. But we're now into Saturday then, Q1 of the Belgian Grand Prix, and all things steady in our ship at AAR, of course, re-signing Lewis Hamilton. And you know, if it wasn't for that poor strategy, I really think Lewis could have maybe been going for back-to-back wins from the British Grand Prix to the Azerbaijan GP. So I'm hoping that we're going to continue to see a revived Lewis Hamilton for the rest of this season. At the end of Q1, though, the big name at the top was Oscar Piastri, wanting to bounce back then from a poor run of races, and maybe the mid-season kind of sequence might reset him a little bit and see him try and improve and come back at Hülkenberg in the teammate challenge. But a massive shock. I mean, my jaw dropped to the floor here. Fernando Alonso knocked out in Q1 in the Andretti. Logan Sargent, his rookie teammate, in P10, and Albon has climbed the Aston Martin out of Q1. Unbelievable. So, unfortunately, this driver move may have backfired for Fernando Alonso, and is one of the moves that maybe he's going to regret, as he has done a couple of times in his career. How embarrassing is that? He's been knocked out in a car that just won the last race. His American rookie teammate up in P10 in the same session, and Albon, the man that replaced him at Aston Martin, has dragged the green car out of Q1, and he has not made it through. That is unbelievable stuff. So that's always, you know, the worry with mid-season changes. You just never really know what the right move is to make, and, you know, that's why it can be a bit techie. We've had it previously on other F1 games where sometimes the move has very much not been the way the AI driver has wanted to go, and so maybe Alonso already regretting that move. But for us, I'm happy to keep Hamilton because he's up there in P2. We're P4. We did technically maybe need to go out again for a second lap, but I wanted to make sure we were safe because things are pretty darn close here, of course, this season. And I was just a bit worried that we might get knocked out on the simulation times at the end. So we went for a second run, and if anything, that just proved that our car is going well around Belgium. But once again, Lando Norris, the championship leader, he just always pulls out the bag when he needs to. Either if it's, you know, from a poor quali into the race, or in quali itself, he pulls it out, and he's P1 there. Russell through into Q3. Unfortunately, the first time of asking in his new outfit, Carlos Sainz cannot get the silver arrow into the top 10 shootout, but it's happy days for Tsunoda, who just about makes it through in that second Audi. And, you know, as long as Tsunoda's scoring a couple of good points, you know, hopefully aiming for, you know, at least maybe P5 or something like that, I feel like that may be an improvement for Audi in terms of their points in the Constructors' Championship. It's another disappointing Q2 for Mick Schumacher, who again is knocked out. So I don't know what's going on with Schumacher, but there's been this point in the season where he's just switched off in quali, and Drugovich is very much switched on, whereas Schumacher was the lead driver for most of this first part of the season. So yeah, it's a weird dynamic, and, you know, it's a good thing about the F1 game is constantly just the AI seem to be evolving through the season, so you can never really count on it going one exact way, because a couple of races, couple of different results, and it'll go another way basically. But anyway, I digress. We're into Q3 then, the top 10 shootout. shootout, and our car seems to have good pace to maybe aim for the front row. I don't know about maybe pole position, because Lando looked pretty darn quick in Q2, but maybe there might be others putting their hat into the ring. This is our one and only flying lap, the one tyre compound fresh set we had left across the line. It's a much better lap than we did in Q2, but that's only good enough for P5. The track was getting so much quicker for others, and it got really quick for Lewis Hamilton, the only man who did a sub 140 lap time, and that bags him pole position. So Hamilton, I think he's definitely buoyed by our faith in him, but look at where Lando Norris is. P2, ever there, ever the consistent person. Piastri on the second row alongside Leclerc. We're on the same row as Tsunoda in the new Audi, so that's going to be an interesting one. Of course, Tsunoda was a former teammate of mine. When he was with us, he didn't really do too well, but maybe this Audi might reinvigorate him a little bit there. But you got a few different stories in there. You know, Piastri looking to show that he could still be a team leader for Repsol Haas. Hulkenberg's down there in P9, so that's going to be a big boost of confidence for Piastri. Drugovich, only P8 though, so Vettel Rennsport were disappointed, and I can confirm, actually, you may have seen it in Q1, Drugovich actually has a five place penalty for some sort of blocking issue, so he's going to be down the order, and that's going to elevate Hulkenberg and Magnussen up one place, of course. So it's going to be a very interesting one at the top there to see what the pace will be like with Hamilton and Norris. And then behind me, there's a lot of different stories that can play out. Let's go to the grid for the Belgian Grand Prix.
We're in Belgium once again for today's round of the Formula One World Championship. It's a race that the great Ayrton Senna won 6 times, and in 2019, Charles Leclerc became the first driver to take their maiden win here since Michael Schumacher back in 1992. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Oscar Piastri, Leclerc, the owner driver, and Tsunoda, Russell, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, and Mick Schumacher, Sainz, Sargent, Felipe Drugovich, and Ricciardo, Albon, Schwartzman, Max Verstappen, and Sergio Perez, Théo Pourchaire, Liam Lawson, Gasly, and Fernando Alonso rounds off the grid. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
Well, this feels like quite a crucial race for us in this season, because clearly the car has the pace with Hamilton there on pole position, but Lando Norris, ever the consistent man, the championship leader, alongside him in second place. We need to be getting ahead of him in this race. Others will be thinking the same. Leclerc, Schumacher behind us, Drugovich, even, you know, the two Haas cars, Piastri and Hulkenberg, will want to try and make the most of this uptick in performance for them two cars, and all of us need to be looking to try and finishing ahead of that Audi. So Lando Norris is the man with a target on his back. Lewis Hamilton, meanwhile, in first place, a bit far out in the championship at the moment, but he could do some considerable damage of catapulting himself up the order if he's to make the most of this pole position. He almost could have gone for the race win at Baku. It didn't work out. Is this now another chance to go for a second race win? And if we're to come ahead of Lando Norris, does that mean we have to also be looking to try and win this race? I guess we're going to find out as we go to 5 red lights to the Belgian Grand Prix. The second half of the season is underway. It's a cracking start for Hamilton. It's a decent one for us as we look to go round the outside of Leclerc. Double lock up for us and Oscar Piastri, who finds his way round the outside of Lando Norris, as we do to Leclerc. But Piastri's going to have to keep his foot on the floor. The job's not done yet, far from it, as he's now going to try and go round the outside of Norris up the hill of Radion, now to the Kemmel Straight. We've got in the mix a bit of contact with the Haas. They've got a little bit dicey up the hill, and getting a tow from Lando, looking to keep it on the inside. It's getting very sketchy indeed. A little bit of bump here, a little bit of a bump there, and we get through into P3, but Norris remains in second place. We tried so hard to maybe get it down and try and find some room to overtake the Audi, but it's not worked. Meanwhile, behind us, Yuki Tsunoda is slotted into P4 in his first race for Audi, doing well at the start, climbing up positions, and Piastri got squeezed out at the end of the Kemmel Straight. Following him, Leclerc, Hulkenberg, Russell, Schumacher, Magnussen round out the top 10. Carlos Sainz in his new Mercedes in P11, and then it's dismal reading for Fernando Alonso fans. Down in last place in the Andretti, he had a grid penalty to add misery to his Q1 knockout. Hamilton, though, leads the way. Great stuff for our team to see us both in the top 3, but we're going to try and make this a 1-2 and swap positions with the championship leader. We need to get this done early. I feel like it's crucial, otherwise this could go away from us. So we're now diving around the outside to the inside of the bus stop chicane. We'll be literally wheel to wheel with Norris on the exit. It's going to be a drag race now, and the Audi has the better acceleration. We get back in the tow on the outside. Lando leaves us a bit of an open door space to maybe have a look. Instead, he'll remain in second place, but we've got the run. A lot of battery use, and we'll do what Piastri did, committed through Eau Rouge on the outside, the top of the hill. Massive whack on the front right. We made huge contact, no damage, but you can see the tension is here in the air of Belgium. This means a lot for the championship momentum, and Tsunoda all of a sudden tries to go up from P4 to P2, but Tsunoda has finished off the move on us. Lando boxed us in and allowed Tsunoda just to easily skate through on the outside as Verstappen is off in the gravel, and it's more misery for him and Ferrari as Alonso gets past Thierry Pourchaire in the McLaren to get up into P20. But my oh my, I guess the signing of Tsunoda really was a stroke of genius from Audi, because that's exactly what they need a second driver in that team to do. Help out Lando, block other drivers, his rivals off in the race, and that's what Tsunoda's done. We got boxed in, Tsunoda made the move, he tried to make it second place, but in the end third place is good enough because it means one less position for me, and Yuki had already done all the hard work of climbing up those positions to push out other rivals down the order. You know, Leclerc down in P6, Piastri P5, now Schumacher P7, as obviously he was elevated because of his teammate's grid penalty, and Schumacher is one of few people that started on the soft compound, so Schumacher going for a burst of pace at the start of this Grand Prix, whereas Drugovich has just taken that 5th-place penalty on the chin, started on mediums, and is going with a normal strategy like the rest of us, and he looks to climb up the order and get Carlos Sainz in the Mercedes on the outside, but Sainz comes back at him though, and that's a bit more fight in Carlos Sainz than we saw from him in the Audi, so maybe, you know, slowly but surely Sainz's move to Merc might be a good thing for him. I mean, he's not too far off his teammate George Russell, so you can't ask for much more, but and the same can be said for Tsunoda right now, because he's right there with Lando Norris in the top 3, and we're looking to chase after him, but at the moment, now he's getting DRS off Norris. It's making things a bit more difficult, but we've saved a lot of battery, specifically for this first sector renew lap, because the last one, we just got stuck in the DRS train, so we're going to need a little bit of ERS help to try and break that, and we are doing so. Right up the gearbox, pulling that to the outside, easy does it, but we sling on through back into 3rd place, and now we have a second chance to have a go at Norris. We're going to stick behind him through the bus stop because, you know, there's really no point fighting him too much side by side there, because you saw in that previous attempt that Audi just has unreal traction out that final corner. We set a fast lap of the Grand Prix as we do that, so definitely the DRS and ERS move on Tsunoda helped our pace out a little bit. The tyre wear is creeping up, but we've still got a good, I would say, 5 to 6 laps on these mediums before we go onto the hard compound tyre. And now, to be honest, we're looking likely to make the move, because now this time Norris has no defense. He doesn't have DRS, we do, and in fact we're going to save battery and just make this a pure DRS overtake and save the battery to defend elsewhere. We're aggressive on the pinch, on the exit, and we're up into P2. Now that's a bit more like it, but there's a long way of this Grand Prix to go. Just ask Tsunoda, because for all he did well in that first opening stage, he's now under pressure, and Piastri's made light work of him there. The Australian up into P4, the Repsol Haas going well in the hands of him. Hulkenberg stuck a little bit in P8, and now look at that, Leclerc, the dive bomb, real late one. Very weird place to make a move, to be honest, even for AI, but Leclerc's done it. Leclerc up into P5, and it's unraveling a little bit for Tsunoda as he's now down to P6. So are we seeing just, you know, maybe the Audi, kind of like the Red Bull in real life? Is this Audi just too geared towards Lando Norris, and whoever steps into that second Audi just can't match his pace? We saw this with Sainz, and we're seeing this now with Tsunoda as, oh no! Oh, it's a disaster. The pressure has got to Tsunoda. He's outbroken himself, and he's broken his front wing. He's going to have to do a whole lap now with half a front wing there. Under pressure from Schumacher, goes into the back of Leclerc, and now this pack is not too far behind. Hulkenberg, Russell, Magnussen, Drugovich, Sainz, all nose to tail, and Logan Sargent miles ahead of his more senior teammate Fernando Alonso. But Tsunoda, having won the last Grand Prix, big pressure stepping into a big brand like Audi, and that pressure has maybe just got to him, you gotta say. But for us, back to our POV, lap 8, we've pulled a little bit away from Norris. He's still within DRS range of us, but we are now crucially in DRS range of Lewis Hamilton, and closing and gonna make a dive around the outside of bus stop. Lewis takes us so deep into the corner. Hamilton with such a stern bit of defense, he almost drove us straight off the circuit. Hamilton defiant in defense, as he has been all season, to be fair. He's had to work on his attacking moves, but he's always been very good at defense from the get-go from that Australian Grand Prix round 1, and we only just narrowly survived being attacked by Norris. But unfortunately, that bit of defense from Hamilton has put us under pressure, because we've used so much battery to catch up to him that we've now got no battery for the Kemmel Straight. We're into single digits, 2% on ERS, so we just don't have the tools to defend Norris on this lap, and he just walks past us because I'm sure he was deploying all the way down that straight. So we're going to have to try and re-engage on the very next lap. So at Spa, it's proving quite difficult to keep the electrics in the car. You know, you can only gain so much in Sector 2 under braking each time. And on lap 10, we're actually not coming back at him because we're still in single digits of ERS. We're getting down to 2% consistently now at the end of the Kemmel Straight, and that's just not enough. We're going to have to try and do this in a corner, and it's going to be maybe this one for us as Hamilton backs up Lando a little bit, maybe with some dirty air, as he doesn't really pull away from both of us, and that may have just been our teammate helping us out a bit, because Hamilton was definitely a lot closer to Lando than I thought he actually was, and he blocked his racing line a little bit there, so that's helped us out. But Norris pulls the trigger early and comes in on lap 10, as does Piastri and Leclerc. So I think all of them have kind of taken us a bit by surprise, to be honest. I didn't think we were going to go that early on the pit stop. So myself and Lewis, we're going to have to, basically make sure we don't fight. I'm going to have to actively not try and overtake Hamilton for most of this lap, because I don't want us to fight, because we're both then going to lose time to everyone who's in the pits, as we now see Lando emerging from the pit exit with Piastri and Leclerc, and they've, unfortunately for us, come out in acres of clean space, so that's frustrating. That means they're going to have a great chance of an undercut. Meanwhile, Mick Schumacher, remember, he started on soft, so he's now gone to mediums to the end of the Grand Prix. So Schumacher with a very aggressive strategy, it's going to have to be, because he has to overtake so many cars, including Fernando Alonso, who's making life so difficult for Schumacher with a massive squeeze from the Spaniard. But the German keeps his foot in, makes that great overtake, and he's going to have to do that about 5 different times to to climb up the order as we're now right up the back of Lewis's rear wing, pushing him through Blanchimont. And as we go down the inside, we're going to peel into the pits. Hamilton continues on for another lap because my engineer called me in for this lap. Apparently Hamilton wants to continue on for another lap, so I'll take it. I really thought he was going to come in maybe as the lead car, but no, he wants to go on for one more lap. So Hamilton maybe looking to protect his tyres, eke out this stint to maybe, you know, help out on the hard compound stint. I don't know. Either way, I feel like it's time to come in because I'm sure Norris and maybe others have been able to get a bit of an undercut going. And we're going to find out right about now as we come out the pit lane. There is Norris on the right and he's through the Audi up into third place at the moment on the road. We do stay ahead of Piastri and Leclerc, thankfully, but that is maybe a little bit worrying then for Hamilton potentially as well. We're closing up to Lando though at the end of lap 12. This could help out Lewis if we fight enough. This could definitely help out our teammate as we're side by side down the inside. Lando a little bit tight on the line. We bang tyres. Piastri gets in the mixer. He pulls out to the left hand side. We're still underneath the rear wing of Lando as we dive down the inside. Lock up, narrowly slow the car down, but Oscar Piastri has absolutely pulled down our pants as he's switchbacked both of us up into second place. We were so occupied with staying ahead of the Audi that we've allowed the Repsol Haas to come through into second place. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, of course, we're really focused on trying to finish ahead of Norris, but Leclerc now comes knocking on the inside with that insane straight line speed we know the Williams is capable of. And Leclerc's actually got ahead of Norris then as well, so that was quite a messy turn one for all of us. And big winners are Piastri and Leclerc, and this is why. Let's look at a replay then. So we're obviously focused on re-overtaking the Audi. Piastri here just sits nice and patiently. There's the lock-up from us, and we narrowly miss making contact with the Audi. But because we had to slow it down so much to avoid that contact, Piastri just dummies us, switchbacks us to the inside and gets up into second place. And the same for Leclerc, who managed to get Lando on the exit as he straddled the curb on the exit of turn 1. And now lap 14, Piastri's actually pulled away from us. He's broken DRS and Leclerc is the one putting all the pressure on us. And like with Lando, Leclerc just streams by us because we just consistently don't have enough ERS on the Kemmel Straight. We gain it back in time for the bus stop chicane, but we've used a lot of it getting the move done back into bus stop. But once again, we're going to try and make this move work for us on the outside of this right-hander. It worked for us on Lando earlier. Can it on Leclerc? Leclerc's a lot more aggressive on the defense as we bang tyres, and once again, there is no love lost between myself and Charles Leclerc this season. Williams versus AAR. Once again, it's a titanic scrap. It's very much like Silverstone on repeat as we're side by side for most of this lap. Then we squeeze him out eventually, but once again, a really satisfying battle. In this one, we come out on top, and we're going to have to play the Wily or Fox move. We break early, and we've let Leclerc through on purpose because I want to try and get the DRS on him, so needs must. You know, I thought, you know, that was a really fun battle, but if we do that anymore, we're going to lose complete out of sight of Piastri and Hamilton. So I wanted to try and dummy him a little bit, get the DRS here, get the overtake done, and then we'll see what we can do in terms of maybe pulling away and chasing after Piastri. Although, to be fair, the gap is 3.3 seconds now to the Australians. Look at that now. The Audi tries to follow us through. Norris tries to overtake Leclerc. Leclerc's gone wide on the curb, and just like that, Norris is through, back up into 4th place. It's Leclerc P5, and now Schumacher has recovered from that early pit stop from softs, and he's right there with them for P6. Dragovic's teammate recovering from the grid penalty in P7. Ricciardo in the Red Bull Ford in P8 ahead of Tsunoda in the Audi. Sainz in P10, the man he replaced. Then you've got Russell Magnussen P12, and then look who's behind Magnussen. Not too far off him, you know. Alexander Albon flying high in the Aston Martin. He's under a second away from Magnussen, who is in a top car this season. Albon's doing insane P13, whereas Fernando Alonso Alonso, the man who is seated, he took his seat at Aston Martin. He's down in P18, Sargent P19. What's happened to Andretti? Unbelievable, as Fernando Alonso made Andretti worse by joining them, as now Carlos Sainz is going to face misery in his debut for Mercedes on the following lap, lap 15. It's an engine failure for the Spaniard. Smoke pouring out the engine earlier through Blanchimont, and he parks it up for safety just on the exit of the bus stop. And that is not the way Sainz would have wanted to end his first race for the Silver Arrows. So now, as we go on a couple of laps later in this Grand Prix, Hamilton still in P1, which is great news for the team. But Piastri now has DRS on him underneath 1 second, as does Norris to us, as he powers past this again. Similar vibe, just didn't have enough pace down the straight, even with deploying ERS all the way through that. The Audi, the Williams, they just have a bit more speed than us in a straight. I don't know if it's just my individual setup potentially, because Hamilton doesn't seem to have the same issue, as we are now back down the inside for a copycat move on Norris. And as the laps go on and the constant attacks come towards us, I don't think a top two's on the cards for us. We're stuck in this battle now. P3 down to P6, but now Leclerc is the one coming knocking on the door of the Audi. Both of them maybe looking for a move on me. Norris locks up. The Audi goes deep, and through goes Schumacher up into P5. This is huge for us, for Schumacher, for Leclerc. All three of us ahead of Lando here want to try and finish ahead of him. So this is great for us. It's almost like all three of us are working as a team to try and single-handedly defeat Lando. It's taking three of us to do it, showing how good he's been. And look at how determined the Brit is to make up places, to get the maximum from this race. And that's exactly why he's leading the championship, limiting the damage wherever he can. But Hamilton still leads this race. Only 4/10 though now ahead of Piastri. Piastri's catching Hamilton on the second last lap. Yellow flags. Leclerc was being caught by Lando, but no, now the Audi is going slow. Oh, it's a disaster for the championship leader, and it's an amazing sight for all of us who are trying to chase him down in the standings. This is unbelievable for all of us. Myself, Leclerc, Schumacher, Dragovic, everyone under the sun. The only man who's going to be disappointed by this is Lando Norris, as he has to pull alongside the circuit and park up. His Audi goes up in smokes for the first time this season, I might say. So it was overdue, because he had some bulletproof consistency this season. It was coming. At some point you thought, he's got to surely have one DNF. We've had one DNF. Everyone else has had one DNF. And now it's Lando's turn. And this is a big moment for us. And we've gone very defensive on Leclerc. We played the Vettel move there. We slowed Leclerc up into a Rouge to make sure he didn't have the momentum over the hill on the Kemmel Straight. And that's going to secure us P3. So very much taking a leaf out of our good friend Sebastian Vettel's book from 2013, I think it was, when he did that on Lewis Hamilton, if I remember correctly. And speaking of Lewis Hamilton, well, he's got his day in the sunshine. It was a misery at Baku, but he's now going on to win his second Grand Prix of the season. It's the first repeat winner of this season. 8 different winners in the first 8 rounds, but round 9 is Lewis Hamilton's. The 8-time world champion is the first repeat winner. If there was maybe one more lap, Piastri may have gone for the race lead, because he was 3/10 under him. So that's a fight that he may be ruining. For us, it's a solid podium, double podium for the team.
And with that, we wrap up yet another incredible Grand Prix weekend. Talk to me, Ants. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
I think it was clear what the main contributing factor out on track was: speed. I know it sounds like an awfully reductive statement, but fast cars win races, and we saw that today with our winner.
The faces on our top 3 look so incredibly happy as they make their way up to the podium. A much-deserved victory and a brilliant performance from them all.
This is the exact kind of race we needed for the Drivers' Championship and the Constructors' Championship. In the end of it, the two former Audi teammates both suffer engine issues. Sainz and Norris out of this one. Of course, Sainz, though, now in the Mercedes, but it didn't matter. Both of them are out, and that's huge for me, for Leclerc, for Schumacher, everyone, even Hamilton, because he's got a win here today. That's going to be a big jump up in the standings. But, yeah, look at that. Piastri was only 4/10 just about behind him. So if there was maybe 1 or 2 more laps, bit more tyre wear maybe involved, maybe Piastri could have gone on for his second win of this season. So it could have been, you know, both of them could have got that. But it was Hamilton's day, and he showed his class today. I think he's fully back now. This is more like the Hamilton we saw in Season 2 before he retired from F1 in this career mode for those few seasons before returning for this one. But yeah, huge stuff for us. Tsunoda does score points on his Audi debut, but it's only 4. But maybe that is better than what Carlos Sainz would have done in the Audi. I don't know. But big day in the office for a lot of us in the championship order. I also want to add, by the way, Alexander Albon came P11 in the Aston Martin. Alonso down in P13. So Albon did amazingly in a slower Aston Martin to beat Alonso in what should have been a quicker Andretti. But look at this. Now, there's only 2 points between myself and Norris in the championship. 7 points covers the top 4. Leclerc, Schumacher in 3rd and 4th respectively. 15 points back Drogovic, Hulkenberg 18 points, and Hamilton 21, Piastri 23. It's still up for grabs. That's not a huge margin. You get a couple of lucky races and it can definitely swing 20 points, but the 7 points covering the top 4 is ridiculous. And the constructors, 1 point between Aarava Archer Racing, our team, and Vettel Rennsport. It is game on again for the constructors. Williams 3rd, Haas 4th, and Audi, because of that DNF for Lando and Tsunoda only getting 4 points, they're down to 5th place. So the mid-season driver transfers have maybe not gone the way all the teams wanted it to, but to be fair, also some lady luck came to the aid of us versus Audi and Lando Norris there, and that now sets alight this championship for the second half of the season. Guys, if you have enjoyed that episode, then be sure to hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.